Her keys were on the counter. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. Lisa was supposed to be in Warsaw on a 3-day business trip, presenting at some logistics summit her company had been talking about for weeks. I wasn't supposed to see her until Saturday. But there they were, her keys, lying there like they'd never left. I didn't panic. I didn't even feel surprised. I stood in the doorway longer than I should have, my hand still on the doorknob, just staring at them. The house was quiet. No music, no television. Just that kind of silence that feels unnatural, like the air is holding its breath. I set my briefcase down slowly and walked into the kitchen. Her favorite mug, the white one with the little crack on the side and the gold rim, was in the sink. Wet. Recently used. I picked it up. The inside was still warm. Coffee. Not tea. Not juice, coffee. Which was strange, because Lisa hated drinking coffee late in the day. She always said it made her too anxious to sleep. My eyes drifted toward the living room. The throw blanket on the couch was crumpled in a way that suggested someone had just been under it. A laptop cord trailed off the armrest, but the laptop was gone. I didn't need to look at the clock to know something was off. I could feel it in the way the room felt disturbed, like someone had rushed out too quickly. I walked slowly, silently, down the hallway toward the bedroom. The door was ajar. I pushed it open with my fingertips. The room was tidy, but not the way she usually left it. One of her earrings was on the dresser, its twin nowhere in sight. The closet was open, and a pair of high heels, ones I hadn't seen in months, were missing from their usual place. I sat down on the edge of the bed, not panicking, not thinking, just observing, processing. There's a kind of stillness that comes over you when something inside breaks, but you don't let it show. It wasn't anger. Not yet. Just a numb, cold awareness that something was unraveling. Then I heard it. A buzzing. Dull. Repetitive. A phone. Not mine. I followed the sound to her nightstand drawer. She never left her phone at home. Ever. But there it was, vibrating softly between a folded scarf and a bottle of hand cream. The screen lit up. A message. From someone saved as Andre Yoga. I wasn't proud of what I did next. But I did it. I picked up the phone, unlocked it. She had never changed the passcode, and opened the message. You wore me out. Still smiling from this morning face blowing a kiss, I stared at it. Not with disbelief. No, that would imply hope. What I felt was confirmation. Like something rotten had finally shown its true smell. I didn't go looking through more messages. I didn't need to. I already knew. I placed the phone back where I found it, face down. No need to disturb anything else. I stood up and walked back into the living room. My eyes caught the window. Our driveway was empty, my car the only one there. But a pair of unfamiliar footprints trailed across the welcome mat. Larger than mine. Dusty, as if someone had walked in and out in a hurry. I sat on the armrest of the couch and stared at the mug again. It wasn't rage that filled me. It was clarity, a kind of mental stillness I hadn't experienced in years. Like a chess player finally seeing the full board for what it was. The queen had made her move. Now it was my turn. No confrontation. No yelling. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of emotion. She wanted secrets? Good. I'd give her one more. I stood, walked calmly to my desk in the study, opened my laptop, and began typing. Not an angry email. Not a diary entry. Just a few notes. Outlines. Timelines. A plan. I didn't know what the final move would be yet. But I knew this. I would not be the man who cries in the shower. I would not be the man who begs for answers. I would be the man who waits, who watches, and when the moment is right, makes the only move that really matters. Checkmate. Looking back, it's almost insulting how normal everything seemed. We had a rhythm, a calm, predictable routine that felt like the definition of comfort. Mornings started with her humming softly in the kitchen while she brewed tea. Always herbal, always in that chipped white mug. I'd read the news, feed the cat, and we'd exchange a quick kiss before heading out the door, her to her meetings, me to mine. It wasn't passion, but it was stable, solid, or so I thought. The first crack was so small I almost missed it. She started coming home later. Not much, 10, 20 minutes at first, but enough that I noticed. Just traffic, she'd say, shrugging, tossing her keys into the bowl and heading straight to the shower. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. But it became a pattern. Late nights, unexplained errands, New girls' nights she never mentioned before. She joined a book club, then a yoga group, then a women's networking circle that met every Thursday evening. I told myself it was healthy, that she was evolving, growing. She said as much herself, oh how she wanted to rediscover who she was before marriage, how she needed time to breathe. I encouraged it, told her I was proud of her for investing in herself. But then came the quiet. Her phone, once buzzing constantly with messages and work calls, became oddly still. She always kept it face down, even when charging it. Notifications no longer popped up on the screen. When I asked who she was texting, she'd smile and say, just the girls, or work stuff, brushing it off like I was being silly. She changed her phone's passcode around that time. Said it was because of a security breach at the office. I didn't press. I trusted her. I really did. Until the spending started. We shared an account, and I was used to seeing the occasional online order or dinner out. But suddenly, there were transactions from boutiques I'd never heard of, restaurants we'd never visited together, spa treatments in neighborhoods we'd never set foot in. When I asked, she said it was all for her new self-care journey. You don't understand how important it is to take care of myself, she said once, almost coldly, like I was accusing her of something. I just want to feel good in my skin again. I nodded. What else could I do? But the dresses she bought never appeared in our home. I never saw them hanging in the closet, never saw her wear them to any of the places she said she was going. Her perfume changed to bolder, muskier. She wore it to girls' night, a scent that lingered in the hallway long after she left. One Saturday, I opened the trunk of her car to grab the bags of groceries she asked me to bring in. Inside, an unopened pack of condoms, wedged behind a yoga mat. She hadn't noticed. I closed the trunk and said nothing. I needed to understand what I was seeing. I needed to be sure. She'd grown colder in bed, distant. She blamed exhaustion, hormones, stress from work. It's not you, she said. It's just, I'm not in the mood lately. The intimacy that once felt natural now felt scheduled, then forced, then absent. She started sleeping with her back to me, on the edge of the bed. I used to reach for her in my sleep. Eventually, I stopped. Her social media changed too. One night, I went to tag her in a memory post from a trip we took to Prague years ago, only to find her profile restricted. I wasn't blocked, just filtered out. Posts I could see from my work account weren't visible from my personal one. Photos she never mentioned, likes from people I'd never heard of. She was curating her life, hiding me from it. But she still smiled, still kissed me on the cheek in the mornings, still asked about my day when she got home. She laughed at my jokes at dinner. She told me she loved me before bed, and I believed her. I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was unbearable. I watched her evolve into a stranger who wore my wife's face. A woman who once clung to me in storms now barely touched me when skies were clear. A woman whose calendar was full, but whose eyes never quite met mine. She was drifting, and doing it with surgical precision. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But something had shifted. Something dark and quiet had taken root in the space between us, and no amount of yoga or essential oils could hide it. The only question left was how deep the rot went, and whether I had the patience to wait for it to reveal itself. It started with the perfume. Subtle, but wrong. She came home late from another supposed networking dinner and leaned in to kiss me goodnight, the scent clinging to her neck. It wasn't the floral, light note she usually wore, the one she kept in the top drawer, always half empty. No, this one was heavier, darker, with a trace of something spicy. It was seductive, not professional. Not the kind of perfume you wear to impress women in blazers at overpriced restaurants. I didn't say anything. Just kissed her back, let her walk past, let her sleep soundly while I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I was imagining it. The next day, I checked the bathroom cabinet. Her usual perfume sat there, untouched. The new bottle was missing, never mentioned, never shown. Just used in silence, and hidden again. I filed it away. A detail. One of many. I started noticing more. The day after, we were having breakfast, silent, uneventful. She scrolled through her phone with mechanical detachment while sipping her smoothie. Then it buzzed. Just once. She froze for a split second. That momentary tension in her shoulder. Barely noticeable. But I caught it. She turned the screen slightly away and said she needed to go to the bathroom. Took the phone with her. Closed the door. Locked it. I could hear her voice. Quiet. Sweet. Not how she spoke to her coworkers. Not even to her family. I didn't move. Just sat there, still chewing, listening to how she said, "I miss you already," in a tone that made my stomach harden. Those were my words. I'd said that to her 2 nights ago when she left early for her yoga session. I'd watched her smile and thank me, kiss me softly on the forehead. And now she was feeding it to someone else, like it was just a reusable line. I didn't knock. Didn't storm in. I simply stood up, walked to the kitchen sink, and rinsed my cup. She came out 5 minutes later, all bright smiles and warm touches. Asked if I wanted anything from the store. I told her to get whatever she thought we needed. She kissed me on the cheek and left, not realizing I just stopped being her husband in my heart. That evening, I checked her phone's geolocation history. She'd left it logged in on her old tablet, a gift I gave her last year. She didn't know I had synced it to the house's Wi-Fi. According to her texts, she was headed to a spa, a place she claimed specialized in deep tissue massage and emotional detox. But the tablet told a different story. She'd been parked near a low-end motel off the highway for over an hour. The kind of place you don't accidentally stop at. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was shocked, but because I was calm. Too calm. Something inside had gone still, like a soldier finally stepping into enemy territory. I took screenshots. Saved timestamps. Labeled the motel's address. No confrontation. No messages. Just data. That same night, I scrolled through her social media using a separate account I'd forgotten I had. A shadow profile I used for market research in a past project. Her page wasn't private to that account. Not yet. That's when I saw him. A name I didn't recognize, Andriy. He'd been liking her old posts. Not the recent ones. No. He went all the way back to 2016. Our honeymoon photos. Her birthday party from 3 years ago. A photo of her in my sweatshirt, smiling at our old apartment. His likes were silent markers. Signals. I clicked on his profile. Empty bio. No mutual friends. No photos tagged with her. But one comment stood out, buried under a picture of her at a business conference. Wish I was still there. Last night was unreal. Posted at 2 a.m. deleted an hour later, but not before I captured it. Days passed. I started noticing how often she left the house without saying where. How vague she became when talking about her schedule. Just running errands. Last-minute meeting. Need some space today. She started taking longer to answer my texts, replying with short, clipped responses. I kept my tone neutral. Supportive. But inside, I was taking mental notes. One evening, while she was taking a shower, I scrolled through her messenger on the tablet again. Hidden among her work chats was a thread with a name I didn't recognize, no last name. Just a single letter. The messages were few, but filled with innuendo. Miss your hands. Same time tomorrow? Be quick this time, my neighbor's nosy. I didn't need a signature. I'd read enough. She was operating under the illusion that I was still her anchor. Still asleep in this soft, domestic lie. But I was awake now. Watching. And I had no intention of sounding any alarms. Not yet. Because the moment you reveal your cards, the game is over. But if you wait, if you play it slow, the opponent never sees the checkmate coming. And she had no idea who she was playing against. The first move was simple. I ordered lunch to her office. Not flowers, not a surprise visit, just a meal from her favorite Thai place with a handwritten note. Thought you could use a pick-me-up. Love, M. I tracked the delivery in real time. 34 minutes later, the courier marked it as delivered. But no message from her. No thank you. No emoji. Nothing. At 3:16 p.m., I texted her, "Hope you liked lunch." She replied 20 minutes later, "Busy day, just saw this. You're the best, two hearts, the only problem?" The courier had noted that the receptionist said Lisa wasn't in the building. I called the restaurant. Asked who signed for the delivery. Reception said she wasn't in today, the voice on the other end told me. That was enough. A signal. Confirmation. So I moved to the next step. I reached out to Daniel, an old friend from university. Quiet, smart, the type of guy who knew how to disappear online. I asked him to set up a convincing fake account. Just a regular guy, casual, charming, nothing suspicious. He messaged her a friendly, "Hey, I think I saw you at that creative tech event last week. Were you wearing red?" It was vague on purpose. There was no such event. And Lisa hadn't worn red in months. But within a day, she responded, "Haha, maybe winking face, you're cute." No questions. No corrections. Just flirtation. It was enough to tell me everything I needed to know. She was on autopilot, a machine of duplicity, a woman ready to step into whatever fantasy presented itself, as long as it gave her a thrill. The next day, I logged into our shared banking app, not because I was suspicious, but because I needed patterns. Predictability. I filtered by location. A motel just off the highway popped up, for different charges, spread over 3 weeks, each one under $80, always between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. I cross-checked them with her calendar. Every time, she had blocked out that window as SBA, or Women's Wellness Workshop. The lie was almost artistic. If I hadn't been looking, I'd never have questioned it. That's when I realized I didn't need to follow her. I needed to follow her friend, Masha, the one she always mentioned in passing. Masha invited me. Masha had a tough week. Going for drinks with Masha tonight. But I'd never met Masha. Never seen a photo of them together. Masha was a ghost with perfect timing. So I created a new Instagram account and started following Masha's business page. Yoga instructor, motivational speaker, lifestyle coach. She posted everything: coffee spots, outfits, inspirational quotes. And one day, she tagged a location I recognized instantly. The same motel Lisa's card had been charged at. I clicked through. Masha had been there 4 times this month. And on 2 of those days, Lisa had told me she was visiting her mother. Patterns. Always patterns. I dug deeper. Masha's most frequent tag profile was a man named Andre S. His page was locked, but his bio had a gym logo and a coaching service link. I Googled the gym. Small. Local. I called pretending to inquire about a membership. Asked if Andre was available. Oh, he's in a session with Lisa right now. You can call back in an hour. That was all I needed. She'd told me she was at a leadership seminar. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't even flinch when she told me she was exhausted from all the mental work. I kissed her goodnight and told her I was proud of her. Then I logged into her iCloud from the old iPad. Still synced. Still unaware. I activated location tracking and set alerts for when she left predefined zones. I downloaded a small keylogger program onto the shared home computer. Not to read her messages, but to monitor logins. I needed her passwords. She was sloppy. One day later, I had the access I needed: Facebook, Messenger, Instagram. All synchronized. I didn't dive in immediately. I waited, observed, breathed in the stillness of strategy. Then I dropped a test. At dinner, I casually mentioned that my colleague Anna had split with her boyfriend. Turns out he'd been cheating, and she'd found receipts for hotel stays. Lisa went still, just for a second, then said, "That's so sad. Some people really can't control themselves." She didn't ask any questions, didn't change the subject. She just smiled and excused herself to go finish an email. She was running scripts, not living moments. That night, I received a notification from the iCloud tracker. She'd driven across town. Motel again. She stayed 93 minutes. Came home smelling of peppermint oil. Said the massage therapist was amazing, really helped loosen her back. I said nothing. Kissed her forehead. Told her I was happy she was taking care of herself. She had no idea. No clue she was living in a simulation I now fully controlled. And as she slipped deeper into her fantasy, I sharpened the knife of reality, one calculated step at a time. She walked into the restaurant smiling, dressed in a sleek black dress she hadn't worn in years, one I bought her on our 5th anniversary, and which she once said made her feel like the center of everything. She even had the nerve to text me before arriving. "Looking forward to us tonight, kiss mark." I watched her through the tinted glass from the private room I had reserved. She didn't see me yet. She checked her reflection in the host's mirror, touched up her lipstick, and glanced around like she was rehearsing a role. I let her sit for 4 minutes before I emerged. The waiter guided me to the table with a respectful nod, and she lit up like it was our first date. "You look good," she said, tilting her head. "It's been a crazy week. I needed this." I sat across from her, silent, calm. A glass of wine already waited at her place, just as I instructed. She reached for it immediately. "So, what's the occasion? You've been so mysterious all week." I smiled, the kind of smile that means nothing. Then I reached into my coat pocket and slid a small USB stick across the table. She blinked. "What's this?" "Insurance," I said. "For me, not you." She frowned. Still acting. Still unsure which scene she was in. I don't understand. I leaned back, folded my hands. You've been meeting Andre twice a week. Motel on Route 7. Sometimes the gym. Sometimes his apartment when his roommate's out. You call it yoga, wellness, work on yourself. But mostly, it's just you undressing and lying to me. Her smile flickered, then fell. What are you talking about? She said, low, quick, defensive. You're being ridiculous. You told me you were at a spa last Thursday. I said calmly. You weren't. I was parked across the street from the motel. You came out with your blouse buttoned wrong and your hair in a ponytail you never wear for work. You kissed him in the parking lot. Then you called me on speaker and told me you missed me. Her breath caught, but she masked it fast. You're spying on me now, she hissed, glancing around, her voice still low but sharp. Is that who you've become? No, I said. That's who you made me become. I opened my phone, turned the screen toward her. A photo appeared. Her, standing with Andre in the motel doorway, arms around each other. Clear as daylight. She blinked once. Twice. Then tried to speak, but nothing came. It was a mistake, she whispered finally. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just felt invisible. You're always so focused, so calm, and you cheated because you're weak, I said. No rise in tone. Just truth. Not because I failed. Not because we drifted. You chose this. You planned it. You protected it. You built an entire world around it. And the only reason you're sorry is because you got caught. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly. It's not like I didn't love you. I do. I always have. I tilted my head. That's the worst part. You said that last week, while booking the room. Your voice was on the security cam in the lobby. Same tone. Same eyes. You're not sorry, Lisa. You're practiced. Silence. Just the hum of the restaurant around us. People talking, silverware clinking, music floating in the background, while her world collapsed behind her eyes. Then came the shift. Her back straightened. Chin lifted. So what now? You want to shame me? Humiliate me? Is this your big move? I smiled again. Not kind. Not cruel. Just final. I reached into my pocket one last time and placed her wedding ring on the table between us. This, I said, is the last gift you'll get from me. She stared at it like it was poison. You're leaving me? No, I said. I already left you. I just needed you to see it happen. Her eyes darted, searching for something, weakness, hesitation, maybe even hope. I gave her none. I stood up, buttoned my coat. The apartment is no longer in your name. The joint accounts have been closed. I'm moving out tomorrow. There's a suitcase in the hallway for you. I left a note inside. It says, I know everything. She opened her mouth, but I was already walking away. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just done. Because there are no grand speeches when you burn bridges. Just quiet footsteps, and the sound of someone realizing they played the wrong game with the wrong man. She called 23 times the next morning. I didn't answer. Then came the text, we need to talk. Another followed minutes later. You can't just walk away. At 5 p.m., she was at the door. Her eyes held no shame, no remorse, just a storm of panic and control. I opened it without a word, stepped aside, let her in. She walked in like she still owned the place, scanning the apartment like something had been stolen from her. Are you serious? She snapped. You really packed up and just ended everything? I sat calmly on the couch, watching her as if she were a stranger trespassing. She dropped her purse on the floor like a threat. Do you even care what I feel? I didn't respond. Silence became my language, and it spoke louder than anything she'd ever heard. She was searching for emotion, rage, sorrow, desperation. I gave her none, and it was driving her mad. You smothered me, she barked. You controlled everything. You never left me space to breathe. I tilted my head slightly. Did Andre give you space? Her jaw clenched, eyes dropped. She hadn't expected a counter that precise, that cold. You don't get it, she muttered. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Like 4 times a week at the same motel? I asked, voice steady. She sat down, arms crossed, retreating into defense. I'm not perfect. But neither are you. You're cold. You're distant. Being with you felt like slow death. I needed something real. I nodded. And lying every day, that was your definition of real? She blinked. I could see her mind racing, trying to pivot, trying to find the angle that would make me fold. She stood again, started pacing. I was hurting. I was lost. You didn't even notice. You didn't ask. You were so wrapped up in your routines, your neat little schedules. I was screaming inside, and you didn't even see me. And instead of speaking, you opened your legs for someone else, I replied, still calm. Her face twisted. You're disgusting, she spat. That's what this is about? Getting even with words now? No, I said. This is about truth. You build a second life, and you kept smiling like nothing was wrong. She laughed, but it cracked in the middle, like something breaking under pressure. You think you know everything now? You're so clever, so put together. But deep down, you're just a coward. You didn't even try. You ran. I stood, slowly. No, I said. You ran. I just opened the door you were too afraid to admit you'd already walked through. She moved closer, softer now. I want to fix this. I want us to work. I'm willing to do the work. I'll go to therapy. We can rebuild. I looked at her the way you look at something you used to love, but no longer recognize. You'll work on yourself, I said. But not for us. That version of us died the moment you chose him. She exhaled sharply and her posture changed again, defensive turned dismissive. You'll never find anyone else. No one will put up with your robotic ways. You're a machine pretending to be a man. I stepped forward, not angry, not aggressive, just there. Present. Better a machine with principles than a hollow woman begging strangers for meaning. She grabbed her purse. I could see her hands trembling now. You'll regret this, she said from the doorway. I said nothing, because I knew she wasn't threatening me. She was warning herself. And I could see in her eyes, she already knew it was true. She stepped out. I closed the door behind her, slowly. Quietly. Like sealing a tomb. No yelling. No final monologue. Just silence, and the knowledge that she lost something she'd never be able to lie her way back into. The moment the door closed behind her, I didn't collapse. I didn't scream. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began orchestrating her undoing. Not out of rage, but precision. The first step was financial. I logged into every joint account, every credit card, every savings plan. Within 40 minutes, my name was the sole access point. I transferred my assets into a separate account under a different bank, filed for individual control of our investments, and requested transaction freezes on anything she could still reach. The car she drove, leased in my name, was scheduled for pickup the following Monday. I set the location as her office parking lot, already knowing she wouldn't be expecting it. The second step, the legal foundation. I had already downloaded templates for divorce filings 2 weeks prior, but now I sent them to my lawyer, one I'd quietly hired while she was out at another networking dinner. I attached the folder of images, message screenshots, timestamps, location history, and a detailed account of her lies. The evidence was damning. And legal. I made sure of that. My lawyer called me that evening. You want the clean route or the total? I said, both. We filed on the grounds of infidelity, citing emotional distress, with a clear list of demands, full division of assets in my favor, sole possession of the apartment, retention of all high-value property registered under my name, and denial of alimony on the basis of marital breach. Next came the social circle. Not a dramatic blast post on social media, no, that's beneath me. Instead, I wrote individual emails. Her parents received theirs first. A respectful, emotionless message that explained what had happened, included the proof, and ended with, I thought you deserved to know what your daughter has been doing for the past 5 months. I didn't write it for their sympathy. I wrote it to collapse the last refuge she thought she had, the approval of her family. Then came her 2 closest friends, the ones she always paraded around as her people. I forwarded the same package with a short note. You're free to decide if this is the kind of person you want to keep calling a sister. One of them replied within 20 minutes, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. She doesn't deserve you. I didn't respond. I didn't need pity. I needed silence, and silence was power. Her job was next. I didn't expose her to her employer, not directly. But I scheduled a formal complaint against Andre, her yoga coach, whose part-time gig at a nearby fitness center overlapped with his role at a marketing firm her company had recently contracted. I contacted their HR anonymously, flagged the inappropriate relationship, cited breach of contract, and attached screenshots of suggestive conversations between their representative and a client's executive, in this case, my soon-to-be ex-wife. The firm took notice. I knew it because 3 days later, Andre's LinkedIn status changed from employed to seeking new opportunities. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I scheduled the delivery of a manila envelope to her office. No sender, no message. Just raw, printed evidence. She would open it in a room full of glass walls, surrounded by colleagues she tried so hard to impress. Inside, the photo of her and Andre at the motel door, a printed map with all her visits highlighted in red, and a single line, "This is who you really are." I deactivated her gym membership the same day, rerouted all digital subscriptions to my email, and shut down the family Netflix, Spotify, and any other shared service. Small things. Subtle things. Every click she tried to make would remind her she no longer had access, not just to luxuries, but to a life she never appreciated. I even reprogrammed the smart lock at the apartment door. The next time she tried to use her code, it would blink red. Rejected. And when she came crying to the building manager, she'd be reminded that the lease was in my name, and that she no longer lived there. Lastly, I wrote her a letter. Not to express my pain, but to finish the performance. Lisa, it read, "You thought you were playing a game. I was simply watching. You lied, and I waited. You fell, and I stood. You tried to rewrite the story, but I owned the pen. There is nothing left to say, nothing left to save. What you destroyed is yours to live with. What I rebuilt will never include you. M." I printed it, sealed it, and placed it on top of the box of her remaining things, left at her sister's doorstep. No confrontation. No explanations. Only consequences. She thought she was clever, spontaneous, untouchable. But every move she made was calculated, documented, preserved. And when the collapse came, it didn't come with fire or fury. It came with precision. Like a surgeon's scalpel. Clean. Cold. Irreversible. The room was already full when we walked in. It was their 20-year high school reunion. Her idea, ironically. She wanted to be seen. To remind everyone how great her life had turned out. She had practiced her smile in the mirror, chosen the dress carefully, made sure every detail screamed effortless success. I let her lead the way through the entrance, hand in hand, just like old times. But the difference was, this time, everyone already knew. She didn't notice it at first. She was too busy waving, hugging old classmates, laughing louder than usual. She leaned into me and whispered, "See? It's like I never left." I nodded. Exactly like that. The whispers started behind her back, then the glances, then the subtle shifts in tone. People who smiled with their mouths, but not their eyes. One woman, her former best friend Lilia, barely managed a greeting. Just a cold glance and a curt hi. Lisa blinked, confused, but kept moving. She didn't know Lilia had received a package 2 days prior. Printed screenshots. Audio snippets. A single message from me. "You deserve the truth." I watched as Lisa tried to hold the room. But she was losing it, second by second. The conversation she tried to start died in awkward silences. Compliments were returned with polite nods. The warmth she expected wasn't there. Then she saw Andre. He wasn't supposed to be here. But of course he was. I made sure of it. And even better, he wasn't alone. He stood across the hall, stiff, pale, pretending not to notice her. She started toward him, smile faltering. "Andre," but he turned away. Walked straight out of the building. Just like that. No word. No explanation. She froze mid-step. I could see it crack her, the way her breath caught, the way her fingers twitched. She turned to me, eyes wide. Did you talk to him?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That silence was already louder than anything I could have said. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and I watched her face drain of color. Her father's name. She answered quietly, stepping away. I could hear enough. "What?" "No, Dad. Where did you? That's not. It's not what it looks like." He's lying. But I wasn't. Her father had received the entire archive the night before. He'd written back only one sentence. "I never raised you to become this kind of woman." She stumbled back toward me, voice shaking. "You told them? My parents? My friends?" I looked her in the eye. "They deserve the truth, not the performance." "You're destroying me," she hissed. "Piece by piece." "No," I said calmly. "I'm simply removing the lies you built your life on. What collapses afterward isn't my fault." Her mascara had started to smudge. Her voice had gone flat. The crowd around us wasn't loud, But the energy had shifted. They all knew. No one said it, but everyone knew. She tried to smile again, to recover, to reach for the illusion. "We're going through something," she said, loud enough for a few people nearby to hear. "Marriage is hard, but we're working on it." "No, we're not," I replied, just as clearly. "Our marriage ended when you started lying and sleeping around. The only thing we're doing now is showing people who you really are." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked around, seeking some kind of anchor, anyone willing to step forward, to comfort her, to play along. No one moved. Not even Lilia. Especially not Lilia. "You planned this," she whispered. "You brought me here to humiliate me." "No," I said, voice steady. "I brought you here because you insisted on coming. I just didn't stop the truth from arriving first." She stood there in the center of the room, dressed for admiration, soaked now in silence. People turned away from her slowly. Conversations resumed. Without her, she had become the ghost in her own story. And I was still standing there. Not walking away. Not storming off. Just watching. Grounded. Steady. A man who had waited for the moment justice didn't need a shout, only exposure. She looked at me one last time. Eyes glossy, breath shallow. "Please," she whispered. "Stop this." I leaned in slightly, just enough for her to hear. "You stop this. I'm just letting it end." And then I stepped back, not to leave, but to watch the final thread snap. And when it did, there was no sound. Just a woman, surrounded by the reflection of everything she destroyed. She showed up 2 days later, uninvited, during a Sunday lunch at her parents' house. I was there by request. Her father had asked to speak with me after reviewing everything I sent. I agreed, mostly out of respect. I hadn't expected her to barge in like a storm mid-meal. The front door slammed open, and there she was, hair wild, breath short, phone in hand like a weapon. "You planned everything," she shouted, ignoring the stunned silence around the table. "You twisted them against me." Her mother gasped, clutching her glass. Her father stood slowly, his eyes burning not with confusion, but disappointment. "Lisa," he said evenly, "sit down." "No," she snapped, stepping into the room like she was reclaiming a throne. "He's manipulating all of you. You don't even know what he's really like behind closed doors." I stood, not to confront, but to make space between us. "I sent them facts," I said calmly. "You wrote the story yourself." She pointed at me, her hand shaking. "You don't get to look noble. You were never there for me. You don't get to pretend you were some perfect husband." Her father's voice cut in, sharp and clear. "Enough. We saw the dates. The messages. The hotel bills. You can't talk your way out of this, Lisa." She turned on him instantly. "So you're taking his side now? After everything I've done for this family?" Her mother stood too. "You lied to us. You humiliated us. Do not pretend you're the victim." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, like it hurt her to even say it. Lisa turned to me, eyes blazing. "Is this what you wanted? To watch me fall apart in front of everyone? Congratulations." "No," I said, holding her gaze. "What I wanted was honesty. What I got was betrayal. What you're doing now, that's just the aftermath." And then, from the hallway, another voice joined. "You said you told him everything." "Andre, I hadn't invited him." She had, probably to try and shift the balance back in her favor. But the look on his face wasn't one of solidarity, it was confusion, and then fury. "You told me he was cold, controlling, that you were leaving him. You never said he knew." She froze. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. "You told me this was over months ago," Andre continued. "You said you stayed with him out of fear. You lied to him, to your parents, and now me." She stepped toward him, desperation rising. I needed time. I didn't want to hurt anyone." "You hurt everyone," her mother interrupted, her voice breaking. "You shamed this family." The room was thick with tension. It pulsed in the walls. Lisa spun in place, looking at each of us like we were enemies in a war she didn't remember starting. "You're all just standing there, letting him destroy me," she screamed. "What about what I felt? What about how empty I was?" I took a breath. "You didn't come to me when you felt empty. You didn't ask for help. You found someone else to fill the silence, and you didn't care who it burned in the process. You think you're so righteous?" she snarled. "You planned all this. You made me look like a monster." "You did that yourself," her father said quietly. She turned on him. "You always judged me. You never accepted who I was. You just liked him because he was everything you wanted me to marry." Her mother stepped between them, voice firm. Stop. Stop blaming everyone for choices you made. You hurt your husband. You broke trust. Now you're angry because people finally see it. Lisa's fists clenched at her sides. I lost everything because of you, she whispered, looking at me. No, I said, stepping forward. You lost everything because you thought you'd never get caught. You believed you were smarter than everyone around you. But lies are heavy. Eventually, they crush the one who carries them. She lunged forward, trying to slap the USB stick from my pocket, but I stepped back. Andre caught her arm, not violently, but firmly. Don't, he said. You need to stop. This isn't helping. She shook him off like his touch was acid. You're no better. You used me. You knew I was married. And I ended it the second I realized what you really were, he said. That silence afterward was the loudest moment in the room. She stood there, shaking, out of breath, mascara running, shoulders rising and falling with every shallow breath. The girl who had once commanded every room was gone. In her place stood someone transparent, unraveling, and deeply alone. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I simply looked at her and said, "It's done, Lisa." Then I sat back down. And no one asked her to stay. It didn't take long. A week after the reunion, she was suspended from her job. An internal ethics investigation began after anonymous materials surfaced, though it was obvious who sent them. Her company had no choice. She resigned before they could terminate her formally. The HR department circulated a quiet memo. Her name faded from the staff list. Andre disappeared too. Rumor was he left the city. She tried to reach out to her inner circle, but they were no longer hers. Her closest friend blocked her on everything. Mutual acquaintances didn't reply to her messages. One even commented under a photo from the reunion, "It's always the ones who smile the most." Her profile went dark after that. By the second month, I heard she had moved back to her parents' place. That lasted 2 weeks. Her mother couldn't look at her. Her father didn't speak to her. I wasn't told that directly. Her sister sent a single message. You were right. Then came the move. A small apartment 2 cities away, near a train station. She got a job at a coffee shop, nothing wrong with honest work, except she had to wear a cap over her perfectly dyed hair and fake a smile every day for people who didn't know her story. She probably preferred it that way. Anonymity was the only kindness left to her. Andre never called, never showed up. He blocked her number the same day he walked away in front of everyone. I didn't know what hurt her more, losing me or realizing he never planned to stay. She sent a message late one night. I still love you. I stared at it for a long time before replying. That's strange, because I don't even remember what your voice sounds like. She didn't answer. A week later, she came to my door. It was raining. Her hair was soaked, her jacket half-zipped, her eyes swollen and red. She looked small, fragile, not broken in the way villains deserve, but empty in the way people become when they run out of lies to stand on. Please, she whispered, barely louder than the rain behind her. Can we just talk? I didn't say anything, just held the door slightly open, enough for her to see I hadn't changed, that my world was still standing, that I was still standing. I lost everything, she said, voice trembling. My job, my friends, my family. You. I waited. I know I don't deserve it, she continued, stepping forward. But I miss you. I miss us. I miss who I was with you. Her eyes were pleading, her arms wrapped around herself like she could still protect something that wasn't there. I didn't know what I had until I ruined it, she said. I would give anything to go back. Anything. I looked at her for a long moment. Not with hate. Not even pity. Just indifference. Like watching someone mourn a grave they dug with their own hands. You're not the woman I married, I said quietly. You're just what's left. She broke then. Really broke. Her knees gave slightly. Her hand gripped the door frame for balance. Please. I'm not asking for everything. Just a chance. Just forgiveness. My voice was calm. Still. Like the final page of a long, bitter story. Forgiveness is something you earn before you beg. Not after. She opened her mouth, but I closed the door. Slowly. Softly. Like sealing a chapter that would never be rewritten. I didn't look through the peephole. I didn't watch her leave. I just stood in the silence she left behind, the quiet that once hurt but now felt like peace. And to anyone hearing this story, I'll only ask one thing. What would you have done in my place?